Now getting into it, Dynamics 365, the basics. How do you license Dynamics 365? The licensing overview is right over here. You have Dynamics applications, and you have assigned licenses and unassigned licenses. This is a distinction that Microsoft explicitly made. So assigned licenses are, and we've listed a few here, licenses for enterprise users or principal users, such as salespeople, customer service representatives, finance employees, etc. It's professional users whose work scenarios are generally less complex with streamlined capabilities. You need to think about sales professional, customer service professional there. There's device-based licenses for assigning a license to your devices. So if you have multiple users using one device, so someone working in a store or in a warehouse, for instance, might make more sense to use device-based licenses. And there's the special team members license, which we will touch more on in the future of this presentation. These are users without a specific function, but who require basic access to the Dynamics 365 environment. You have then unassigned licenses, which constitute of full applications licenses, like Dynamics 365 marketing. You assign it to your tenant, and you can use it for everyone in the environment. And they are capacity licenses, so think of storage or adding an additional sandbox or something like that. A note around team members. For basic access, like reading data across all applications, if you have custom apps, then team members are not a good solution for your users because that is not covered in the team members license. Now, if we look at the licensing model of Dynamics 365 for cloud, what you will need to understand is how the model is set up. So the way to license Dynamics 365 is that you first license a single application, meaning the base license. This is the first business application that you might need for your users. And if there's additional applications that you need, you can add those on top of that as an attached license. So the base license will give you the initial access to the Dynamics 365 service of the app of your choice. That can be, for instance, sales or customer service or field service. But if you need additional access on top of your field service licenses, you have users that also need sales or customer service, you can attach these. The attached license is offered at a fraction of the price of the base license because the base license holds the initial access to the Dynamics 365 service and setting up the tenant and hosting the environment. And the other things can be added as use increases. So that also means you don't have to buy everything for anyone. If you have specific users that need sales and not customer service, that's possible. If you have other users that need sales, field service, and customer service, that's possible as well. So you can mix and match and add the applications on top of the base license that you have bought. For ERP, it works quite the same. So you choose the base license that you need and you add the attached licenses, but you also have additional licensing requirements. So aside from the main applications that we will touch more in the relevant section, you have the operation activity license, can be considered a little bit a team members license, but difference is that it has all the team members functionality and adds some additional functionality specifically to what you need for your ERP usage, like approving activity-related transactions, creating or editing items related to special activities, etc. And there's the HR self-serve. That's actually a license that is very limited in its use. It's just for human resources and only for human resources, and it provides the user to update employee info, report sick leave, or do other minor tasks in the HR application. as you can see, team members license grants these same rights plus rights to use the functionality in other applications as well. So more on that in the coming slides as well. Now, this is a bit of a cluttered slide. It is taken from the Dynamics 365 licensing guide. And what you see here is how to license the attach motion. So on the top row, you see all the different applications in the Dynamics 365 environment that you are able to buy. So you see commerce, customer service enterprise, customer service pro, field service, etc., etc., etc. On the other axis, you see the same applications. How you need to read this is if you buy, for instance, a customer service pro license, the ones where it states an X are the licenses that you are able to attach on top of this as a base license. There are some important notes here. You cannot have, for instance, a pro and an enterprise license in the same environment. So if you buy Customer Service Pro and Customer Service Enterprise, these cannot be in the same environment, but need to be split over 2 different environments or different tenants. Attached licenses can only be assigned to users with a correct base license. So you need to first buy a base license for your users in order to be able to buy an attached license. In an EA, if you incorrectly purchase an attached license, you can step up the attached license to a base license. So if you incorrectly order as a first license an attached license, there is a way to remediate that immediately. In CSP and MPSA, if you're buying still through MPSA, the attached license would need to be swapped out for the correct base license. Again, let's take another example. If you have project operations, for instance, and you also want to do some other activities in the Dynamics 365 environments, look towards where the X's are, and those are the applications that you can add on top of project operations. So you can do a commerce attached license, a finance attached license, or a human resource attached license. What you can't do is add Business Central Essentials or Business Central Premium to a project operations license. Finally, dual use rights apply. So if you are buying any and all of these applications, what you can also do is connect to an on-premise environment that you have. So for instance, if you have sales enterprise as a license bought in Dynamics 365 for cloud, you can also connect to your sales on-premise environment. A little bit about storage, and we're going into it a bit deeper in the relevant section. But storage is very complicated in the Dynamics 365 environment as of this moment. It used to be that there's one type of storage. There's now 3 for the CRM capabilities. There's additional storage for ERP. There's additional environments that you need to buy, etc., etc. But the way you need to read this table, again taken from the Dynamics 365 licensing guide, is where you want to start. So the first license gives you default capacity and is shared over your tenant. So if you buy a, let's take a good example here. If you buy a finance, I can't even read it myself now. So if you buy a remote assist license, you get 10 gigabytes of tenant storage, and you get 20 gigabytes of Dataverse file storage included in your tenant, and 2 gigabytes of Dataverse log storage included in your tenant. Same here with sales enterprise, customer service enterprise, or field services. You start with a default of 10 gigabytes of Dataverse storage included in your tenant. You get an additional 250 megabytes of Dataverse database storage per user that you have. So an additional 250 megabytes per user that you buy. You get 20 gigabytes of Dataverse file storage included, and 2 gigabyte accrued storage per user that you have bought in your tenant. and a base of 2 GB of Dataverse log storage. If you need additional storage on top of the base that you're granted, you have the option to buy more. Attached licenses use the same entitlements as your base license and don't increase capacity. So it's not like I bought 250 base licenses and 250 attached licenses, so I get 500 times the accrued value per USL. Now you only get 250. If you want to add additional environments, so meaning you want an additional production environment or a sandbox environment, or which Microsoft calls a non-production environment, you will need to have a minimum of 1 GB of space available to create this environment. And then obviously you need to have the available storage to store the different types of data that you need in that environment. So this, as you can see, will be quite complex if you need to know how much storage you need, especially if you go from the old model to the new model. How does your storage actually change? These questions are very important to ask yourself when you sign up to Dynamics 365, and especially if you move from the old customer engagement plan model to this new model. The old model had one type of storage. In the new model, you have the 3 different types of storage. Now, when you license Dynamics 365, there are certain applications and certain things that you can buy that have a minimum quantity requirement. I've listed them here. This is also listed in the product terms on page 67. Right now the pages are just one website, so you need to go to the Dynamics 365 entry of the product terms, and then you will quickly find this when you select the relevant model. For this one, I've chosen the EA program, and you can see that if you want to do Microsoft relationship sales, you need to have a minimum of 10 licenses throughout the term of your subscription or contract. For ERP, there's a minimum of 20, commerce, finance, supply chain, and project operations, but you can mix and match. So you can buy, sorry about that, you can buy 5 commerce, 5 finance, 5 supply chain, and 5 project operations, and be compliant in your tenant. Human resources, 5 as well, and so on. Important to note for Dynamics 365, external users don't need licenses. Like I said, dual use rights are available. So if you have an on-premise solution as well, if you buy Dynamics 365 cloud services, you can access your on-premise environment. Multiplexing, so pooling of connections, as with all Microsoft licensing, is not allowed. You can't use a pooling server and run all your users through there and only buy one license. You need to have a license for all users accessing indirectly or directly the application. All the apps that you buy grant total team member functionality, meaning that you have all the different bits and pieces of team members available. If you license, for instance, Sales Enterprise for one of your users, and again, look at your storage requirements.